Outraged citizens are now calling for the late-night talk show host to get booted off the air for his remarks that he made last week about Alaska Governor Sarah Palin's teenage daughter and about the governor herself. Now, protesters will gather outside of Mr. Letterman's CBS studio tomorrow and make themselves heard, and there is a late-breaking development in this story tonight. The New York Times is reporting that Dave once again tried to apologize to the governor and her daughters on his show that was taped just a short time ago. It will air tonight. And joining me now to discuss all this, a man, by the way, no stranger to protests, the Reverend Al Sharpton. Last time you had a protest, you lost a lot of weight in jail.
Well, I was fasting.
Fasting, but you were eating soup. I got the whole
after 40 days of fasting.
All right, look, this is a serious issue. Slutty flight attendant look about Governor Pailn. You know, you got into the Don Imus controversy over the nappy-headed hoe comment, okay? Said she has a slutty flight attendant look, and he talks about A-Rod knocking up his teenage daughter. The daughter she brought to the game, the governor brought to the game, was 14 years old.
Well, first of all, I don't think anyone defends what Letterman said, including Letterman. Letterman has said it was wrong. It was a very despicable way of talking about anybody. But for you to compare that to Imus, what Imus said didn't insult an individual. He insulted a race, and he insulted a gender. And you can't
Letterman's not insulting a gender when he says a slutty flight attendant.
Well, I mean,
that's not insulting to women?
I think that could be offensive to the person he directed it.
How about flight attendants? How about women in general?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm disagreeing your comparison. Yeah. Imus said something that offended a race and a whole gender. He wasn't talking about the individual girls as individuals. And you were the one that said that Imus shouldn't be fired. So I'm sure you would be out there protesting the protesters.
Don Imus apologized the day after. Now, Letterman joked about he had a joking apology, and I didn't see tonight's apology. I want to take a look at it. I'm not saying that he should be fired, Reverend Allen. That's not the issue here. What I am saying is, after Don Imus was fired, well, first of all, he went into your studio and you beat him up pretty bad, and he apologized profusely.
I would beat up Letterman pretty bad. And if Letterman had said, I had a civil rights organization, National Action Network, if Letterman had said something against a race of people, if Letterman had said something against a gender of people, that's a civil rights issue.
A slutty flight attendant? What if I called you a slutty flight attendant, or somebody in your family a slutty flight attendant?
People have probably called me worse than that on your show.
You called me worse than that.
Yeah, because that's an individual. And I think that Mrs. Pailn and her daughter, as individuals, have more than enough reason to be offended and should take whatever actions they think is necessary. But you can't make that a civil rights issue.
Let me give you another example. Carrie Prejean, Miss California, was called by this guy, Perez Hilton, you know, the A word, B word, C word.
Oh, and we said very strongly we disagreed with that. Absolutely.
But why haven't you gone out as strongly as you did against Don Imus? That's the question.
Because there is no, who is Mr. Letterman offending as a group?
I'll tell you.
Who is he referring to as a group?
Women? You don't think slutty?
To say that these are hoes, nappy-headed hoes, has clear racial implications and clear implications about their gender. You're talking about a group of women.
But the difference
He's talking about his opinion of a woman.
Let me say one thing.
As grotesque as it was, you can't make that a gender
insult. Don Imus will be the first to tell you, because I've interviewed him, that what he said was wrong, over the line, it was unfair. Even after he was fired, first of all, he apologized the next day, and he was sincere. I don't think Letterman was sincere in his first apology. That's difference number one. Difference number two, he went and he met with you. Difference number three, after he was fired from everything, he still went and met with the girls from the basketball team, and I think rightly so, looked them in the eye and said, I was wrong, I was stupid, I apologized. And he's been on the air over a year, and you even said he's lived up to the promise that he made.
So far. And when he went back on the air, you didn't see any of the protesters there because he had been fired for 8 months and he paid for his deed. Yeah. And he offended more than those girls. He offended everyone that had the racial and gender stereotypes.
So is race more important than gender then? I mean, in that sense, in terms of...
No, it's not race or gender. It's either one of them would be a violation of someone's civil rights. But I think that if this was directed, if what Imus said, Don Imus had offended Gwen Ifill before that, but it was an individual attack. You're not talking about an individual attack with the Rutgers team.
For you, it has to be against a group. And for example, let me give you an example. Playboy had a list and this is about as gross and despicable as it gets, a list of conservative women that they would hate, and then the blank word. Really advocating violence towards women and misogyny and just in a horrible way. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, I mean, you have guests that have written a book called "The 100 People That's Ruining America" and had all of our pictures on the cover.
Were you on it?
Yeah. Would that be racist? He has the right to have that opinion.
Well, was it just one race of people?
There was not one race, but it was all Democrats. Should we say that he's therefore calling for our lives? People have the right to say what they want, as ugly as it is against individual people.
Barack Obama said to one guy at a town hall meeting, "I'm going to send Mr. Burgess over here over to Fox News to tear up Sean Hannity." Was that a verbal threat against me, a physical threat against me?
No, absolutely not. And I'm sure all of the very off-color pointed things you say against the president, you're not trying to threaten.
I'm just telling the truth. No, of course not. I have political disagreements. I think his daughters are lovely. I don't have anything against him personally, but I think he's ruining this country's economy and he's weakening our national defenses.
Well, I'm allowed to totally disagree. Of course you're allowed to.
All right, last question. You've met and you spent a lot of time with the president. How's that?
I've had a meeting with him, which Newt Gingrich was there for. Very balanced meeting. Yeah. Very, very concerned about education, trying to pull all sides together on education, and we're going to work with Secretary Duncan from the conservative to the what you would call the left to try to deal with the education inequality in this country.
Well, listen,
that's a serious issue.
I agree on this. I think every parent should have a choice in education, competition in education, just like competition in healthcare. You agree with that?
We agree to a degree. I agree that they must have competition. I do not agree with the privatization of education.
All right, Reverend Al, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And